How's it everyone? This is Lolcohol, and in today's video I'm going to be crafting a budget Reap Staff. Now if you aren't playing this build, this is such a cool craft that even if you're not playing it, you will learn stuff. There's a lot of like interesting fundamental crafting methods that I'm going to be using, and the modifiers we're looking for are a Reap Staff like this. Just ignore the modifiers, but we need level 20 Reap, and then we want to get cast speed, and then +5 level of all spell skills. And then for our third suffix, either crit chance or crit bonus. Then on our prefixes, we're going to get a modifier that's an unveiled modifier. It is 5% increased spell damage per 100 maximum life. And then our other two prefixes, we want to get something like damages extra, cold, fire, and lightning. We can almost guarantee this craft fairly cheaply, but this craft's a bit weird. So there's going to be things I'm doing in step 1 that you're going to be scratching your head about, but it's important because it impacts things we do in step 3, and I'll do my best to explain that as we go. But to start out, what do we need? We need a Reaping Staff, item level 81, normal rarity, and very importantly, grants level 20 Reap. So this is our base. These things cost about 70, 90, up to 100 Exalted Orbs. You can also search by Exalted or Divine Orbs, so you're not seeing ones listed for annuls. But let's go ahead and buy this one. Okay, so the reason we got item level 81 is that there is a chance, a very small chance, that in the first step we can get lucky and hit +7 levels of physical skill gems. But that's very unlikely. But just so that we have the chance, I'm starting with that item level. Now the first step, what we want to do is use a perfect orb of transmutation, and we're trying to hit a prefix modifier. Any prefix, it doesn't matter. If we hit a suffix, I'll explain what to do, but we're going to use this, and this is a suffix. This is actually good that this happened, but what we are trying to get in our first step is a rare item with 1 prefix and then 1 suffix. So if you get a prefix, what you need to do is use an Essence of Alacrity immediately. If you get a suffix, then you have to go for an Orb of Annulment. You can also maybe search for a Reaping Staff with just 1 prefix. So you can say like it is magic and it has an empty suffix like this. So 1 empty suffix. You could also start with a base like this, but it's a little bit, maybe a little bit more expensive. But with the price of annuls right now, do check. So we got a suffix. What we're going to do now is annul. And you're probably like, why? But I'll explain. So we got a magic Reaping Staff. And now what we want to do, use our greater Essence of Alacrity. This is going to make it rare with cast speed. Now before we go on, when you are doing this first step with the transmutation, there's some suffixes we can hit that are really good. And if you hit those, the craft changes slightly. I'm going to do a written guide of this on Mobalytics. So if that happens to you where you hit one of the good suffixes, which will be listed on Mobalytics, you can follow along there and see what to do. It's basically, if you hit a good suffix, it kind of skips a step and saves you from using a homogenizing exaltation. But let's just assume you don't get that. So now we have this. What we need to do is add on a prefix. So we're going to use an Omen of Sinistral Exaltation and just a normal Exalted Orb. Which prefix we slam on does not matter at all. It doesn't matter. So we're just going to slam it. That's actually a really good prefix, but we're going to lose it in this next step. So now what we want to do is get Perfect Essence of Sorcery. This is going to give us +5 level of all spell skills. So this, what it does, removes a modifier, then adds this modifier. But we can ensure that it only removes a prefix with an Omen of Sinistral Crystallization. So we activate that, and then we're going to use this. It's going to remove the prefix and add our +5. The next thing we want to do is we want to add on the third suffix. We're going to be using Omen of Homogenizing Exaltation. This will add a modifier with the same tags as existing modifiers on the item. So we currently have Caster and Speed and Caster and Gem. Let's just have a look at PoE DB. So we have Cast Speed, Caster and Tag, and Caster and Gem. And then the other things we have are spell bonus, crit chance. These also have the caster tag, and these are the modifiers we want to try and get. Either crit chance or crit bonus. None of these other modifiers matter, but we don't have any of these other tags, so we can't hit that. So what we want to do now is we're going to use an Omen of Homogenizing Exaltation, and we're going to use a Omen of Dextral Exaltation. So this will force on a suffix with our Exalted Orb. And then, depending on your budget, you can go with a perfect Greater Exalt. That's about 2.5 divines, or you can just use a Greater. The Greater will guarantee tier 3, 2, or 1 crit bonus or crit chance, and the perfect will give you tier 2 or tier 1. So here we're going to slam it. Just make sure these are active. We got a suffix, homogenizing, good. Slam it, and we're going to get crit bonus or crit chance. Crit bonus. All right, and it's tier 2. That's really nice. The next step is pretty interesting. So that modifier that I spoke about earlier, the spell damage per maximum life, that is an Ulamon modifier. So we can just see over here, this is the modifier we want. It's a prefix, and it's an Ulamon's modifier. Now, something very, very important. This modifier shares a mod group with spell damage, percent increased spell damage. What I mean by that is mod groups are certain modifiers cannot both exist on an item at the same time. So if you have one, you cannot have the other. So certain things like if you have level of all physical spell skills, you can't also have level of all skills because, I mean, that would be too overpowered. But this modifier, this shares a mod group with pure spell damage. So if you have spell damage, you cannot get this. I learned this the hard way when I tried to unveil this modifier repeatedly, and I just could not get it, and I couldn't figure it out. And then I eventually realized, oh, they're in a mod group. However, hybrid spell damage does not share a mod group with this. So if you have hybrid spell damage, you can still hit this modifier. This is the reason that I did things weirdly at the start, because what I previously suggested was going for a good prefix and then using an Essence of Sorcery to get high spell damage, and then going for the Unveil. Well, actually, I then did the suffixes, and then I went for the Unveil, and I couldn't hit that mod. And it's because I had spell damage, and then I could not hit this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use an Omen of the Liege. This is it's an Ulamon modifier, so we need to use Omen of the Sovereign. Omen of the Sovereign. We're going to buy one of these.
All right, your order is registered.
And then we're going to use a Preserved Jawbone. So right-click this guy. This guarantees that we'll get that Ulamon modifier, and then we're going to apply this. All right, next thing is to take it to the Well of Souls. The reason I'm not doing anything else with the prefixes now is, like I was saying, if we were to slam on percent increased spell damage, we wouldn't be able to unveil the modifier that we're looking for. So let's take this. I'm like 99.999% sure that we will always unveil this now, because there are only 2 Ulamon prefix desecrations. But just to be ultra safe, we can use an Omen of Abyssal Echoes. This will allow us to re-roll again if we don't get what we want. So let's see, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get it. There we go. So here's the spell damage per 100 maximum life. I think we can actually re-roll this to see if we get 5% increased spell damage, because this is 4 to 5%. So let's re-roll, and we still got 4%. So you can see that it is guaranteed. All right, so there we go. Here is our little Reap Staff. Next, what we want to do, again, is going to involve a homogenizing exaltation, adding modifiers that share tags. And currently we have Caster Crit, Caster Gem, Caster Speed, and Life Damage Caster. The reason we added this in this step and not earlier is that there are some life-tagged suffixes that we do not want. So if we had an open suffix, and then we did homogenizing X with this on the item, we could have hit like life on kill, which we don't want. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go homogenizing exaltation and then double exaltation. So this is going to add 2 slams and then just a greater exalt. So we can only hit modifiers with the caster, speed, crit, gem, and damage tag. There are no speed or crit prefixes. There are a lot of caster prefixes though, and there are also some damage prefixes. So these ones have the damage tag. These are great. What isn't so great is hybrid spell damage. We can hit this. If we do, it's a little bit sad, but I mean, it's still damage. Ideally, what we do want to hit though is damage is extra fire, damage is extra cold, or damage is extra lightning. So again, depending on your budget, you can either use a perfect or a greater exaltation. So let's just check. It's double X, homogenizing, and let's see what we get. And we got double damage as extra. And those were tier 2, which is actually pretty lucky because with the greater exalt, we could have got tier 3, tier 2, or tier 1. So here's our staff. All that's really left to do is add a couple of sockets, and then you can add quality. Quality on Reap increases the duration of critical weakness, and then you can add in sockets. So probably best is going to be just spell damage, or if you need a bit of extra spell crits, you can do that, but I think the best is spell damage, this one. So here is our staff. This is almost 100% completely deterministic. The only things that are variable is which suffix you get over here. Are you going to get spell damage bonus or crit? And then the prefixes. Are you going to get 2 damages extra, or are you going to get 1 damages extra and hybrid spell damage? So yeah, this one I kind of racked my brain over last night, but I figured it out, and this is completely deterministic. We can give this a price check. Might be worth more. On average, this craft should cost you about like 5-ish divines less if you're just using greater exalt, but it's pretty safe. So we can say, let's say it must have 2 damage as extra cold, extra fire, or extra lightning. And then we can say cast speed 38. What we can also do is another count. So this is saying it must have 1 of these. So either spell crit chance or crit bonus spell. And then the other thing is the level of all spell skills. So put that in, see if anything shows up. And here we go. We got this one. This guy hit mana. I don't know. Maybe he did some weird method. Actually, this one's very, very similar. But the other thing these guys don't have is the damage per 100 life. So searching for that, no results found. If we do something like this one is for 1 divine. I don't know how these people are crafting these, but if we take this off, I kind of get the feeling that people haven't really figured out this craft quite yet. So, I mean, here's the video. I figured it out for you. Here's one for 20 divines that is like worse than the one that we just made. So enjoy. I'll be releasing a guide on this rebuild once I get my head around it a bit more. And I'll also do a video on how to craft the endgame version of this staff, which is a little bit more, it's not that much more complex, but there's a couple of recombinator shenanigans that we have to do. But that's going to be it. Be sure to check the Mobalytics guide, links in the description. And then I will also be doing a crafting guide for the endgame one. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Catch you in the next video. And bye-bye.